Michael wasn't built like the other guys on the football field. They were broad, thick, and powerful. Michael was not. He was tall, sure, but skinny, almost fragile-looking. He dreamed of making game-winning catches, of the roar of the crowd, of the camaraderie of the team. He loved football more than anything. He wasn't naturally gifted, but he was determined. He spent hours studying plays, practicing his footwork, and throwing passes against a brick wall in his backyard. He knew he had to work harder than everyone else to even stand a chance. Making the team was a victory in itself. He wasn't a starter, not even close, but he was on the roster. He wore number 82, a jersey that felt both too big and too important. He imagined the stories that jersey could hold, the touchdowns, the tackles, the sweat and the glory. He wanted to earn those stories. His mom cheered him on from the sidelines. She knew how much this meant to him, and she beamed with pride every time he stepped onto the field, even if it was just for a few plays during practice. She'd pack him extra snacks, always making sure he had enough to eat, knowing he needed to bulk up. But the field wasn't always kind. Football was a tough sport, and high schoolers could be even tougher. Michael was about to find out just how challenging it would be to chase his dream. The other players towered over him, their laughter sometimes sharp and mean. The first few practices were brutal. Michael struggled to keep up. The drills were designed for bigger, stronger players. He was constantly getting knocked down, pushed around, and outmaneuvered. "Hey, Twig! Try holding the line for once," boomed a voice, belonging to Jake, the team's star linebacker, a mountain of muscle. Other players snickered. During tackling drills, Michael was often paired against the larger players. He'd brace himself, trying to remember the coach's instructions, but he was usually sent sprawling. "Maybe you should try out for the cheerleading squad, Mikey," another player, Tom, yelled, earning more laughs. The coaches, while not actively participating in the mockery, didn't stop it either. They seemed focused on the players with more potential, the ones who already had the size and strength they needed. Michael felt invisible, except when he was being used as a punching bag. He tried to ignore the taunts, to focus on improving, but it was hard. The words stung, chipping away at his confidence. He started dreading practices. The joy he once felt was slowly being replaced by anxiety and self-doubt. Even simple exercises were a challenge. He struggled to lift the weights, his arms shaking under the strain. The other players would watch, their faces a mixture of amusement and contempt. "Look at him, he's gonna snap in half," someone would shout. He knew they were right, in a way. He was skinny. He was weak. But he didn't want to be. He wanted to be strong, to be respected, to be a valuable member of the team. He just didn't know how. The laughter echoed in his ears long after practice ended. One particularly scorching afternoon, the team was running wind sprints. Michael, already exhausted, lagged behind. Jake, running beside him, intentionally bumped him, sending him sprawling onto the dusty field. "Oops, sorry, Mikey. Didn't see you there," Jake said, a cruel grin on his face. The other players laughed. Michael lay there for a moment, the wind knocked out of him, the taste of dirt in his mouth. He looked up at the laughing faces, and something inside him snapped. He felt a wave of shame and anger wash over him. He wanted to disappear. He slowly got to his feet, brushed himself off, and finished the sprint, but his heart wasn't in it anymore. He walked to the sidelines, grabbed his water bottle, and sat down, away from the other players. The coach approached him. "You okay, Michael?" he asked, his voice lacking genuine concern. "Yeah, I'm fine," Michael mumbled, avoiding eye contact. "You know, football's not for everyone," the coach said, patting him on the shoulder. "Maybe you should consider something else. Chess club, maybe." The coach's words felt like a final blow. It was as if he was confirming what Michael already feared: he wasn't good enough. He wasn't strong enough. He didn't belong. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, replaying the day's events in his head. The laughter, the taunts, the coach's dismissive words. He felt a crushing weight of disappointment. He thought about quitting the team, about giving up on his dream. Maybe they were right. Maybe he should just quit. Tears welled up in his eyes. He felt utterly defeated. He pulled the covers over his head, wishing he could just disappear. The next morning, Michael woke up with a dull ache in his heart. He felt numb. He went through the motions, getting ready for school, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept replaying the previous day, the humiliation, the discouragement. He walked to school, head down, avoiding eye contact with anyone. He thought about the football team, about his dream. He knew he couldn't keep going the way things were. He had two choices, quit, or change. He couldn't bring himself to quit. The thought of giving up on his dream was unbearable. But he also knew he couldn't keep enduring the ridicule. He needed to get stronger, both physically and mentally. He needed to prove them wrong. That afternoon, instead of heading to football practice, Michael walked in the opposite direction, towards the older part of town. He remembered seeing an old gym there, a place called the Old Iron Works. It was run down, almost forgotten, but he remembered seeing weights inside. He found the gym tucked away on a quiet street. The building was old and weathered, with peeling paint and cracked windows. The sign was faded and barely legible. It looked like it hadn't been used in years. He hesitated for a moment, then pushed open the creaky door. The smell of rust and old sweat filled the air. The gym was dimly lit, with rows of rusty weights and worn-out equipment. An old man with a thick mustache and calloused hands sat behind a dusty counter. "Can I help you, son?" the old man asked, his voice gruff but kind. I want to work out," Michael said, his voice barely a whisper. "I want to get stronger." The old man looked him up and down, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Then you've come to the right place," he said with a slight smile. "This is where you earn it." The old man, who introduced himself as Joe, showed Michael around the gym. It was a far cry from the fancy, modern gyms he'd seen in magazines. Here, everything was worn and weathered, but it had a certain charm. The weights were heavy, the machines creaked, and the air was thick with the smell of iron and determination. Joe started Michael off slowly, teaching him the basics. Proper form was everything, he emphasized. "No point in lifting heavy if you're gonna hurt yourself," he'd say, his voice raspy. Michael listened intently, absorbing every word. The workouts were grueling. Michael pushed himself harder than he ever had before. His muscles ached, his hands blistered, and his body screamed for him to stop. But he didn't. He remembered the laughter, the taunts, the coach's dismissive words. He used that pain as fuel. Night after night, Michael returned to the Old Iron Works. He worked in silence, focused on his goal. Joe offered guidance and encouragement, but mostly, he let Michael push himself. He saw the fire in the boy's eyes, the determination that burned within him. The montage began, Michael struggling to lift a weight, then slowly succeeding. Michael doing push-ups until his arms trembled. Michael running on the old treadmill, sweat pouring down his face. Joe spotting him, offering quiet words of encouragement. The camera focuses on Michael's hands, raw and calloused, gripping the cold iron. He started small, lifting manageable weights, focusing on building a solid foundation. Gradually, he increased the weight, pushing himself further each time. He learned to control his breathing, to focus his mind, to ignore the pain. He wasn't just building muscle, he was building character. He was learning discipline, perseverance, and the importance of hard work. He was transforming himself, both inside and out. The old gym became his sanctuary, a place where he could escape the world and focus on becoming the person he wanted to be. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Michael began to see results. His clothes started to fit differently, feeling tighter across his shoulders and chest. He noticed a slight definition in his arms, a subtle hardening of his muscles. He still struggled with the heavier weights, but he was no longer failing. He could lift more, push harder, and endure longer. Joe nodded in approval, offering small words of encouragement. "Keep at it, kid. You're getting there." One day, Michael looked in the mirror and saw a change in his face. The haunted look was gone, replaced by a newfound confidence. He stood a little taller, his shoulders a little broader. He still had a long way to go, but he was no longer the same person who had walked into the old iron works months ago. He kept going to school, kept up with his studies, but his focus was different. Football practice was still something he avoided, the memory of the ridicule still fresh in his mind. But he no longer felt the same crippling self-doubt. He knew he was working towards something, that he was changing, and that one day, he would be ready. His mom noticed the changes too. "You've been looking different, Michael," she said one evening at dinner. "Stronger. Happier, even." Michael smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I've been working out," he said, not elaborating further. He didn't want to jinx it, to say too much too soon. He wanted to let his actions speak for themselves. He continued to eat his mom's home-cooked meals, appreciating her unwavering support. She didn't know about the gym, about the grueling workouts, about the transformation he was undergoing. But she saw the change in him, and she was proud. The small improvements fueled him. He felt a surge of hope that maybe, just maybe, he could actually achieve his dream. The laughter of his teammates still echoed in his mind, but now, it was a challenge, a motivator, not a source of despair. He was coming for them. The school year ended. Summer arrived, bringing with it long, hot days and even longer nights. While his former teammates were enjoying their break, hanging out at the pool and going to parties, Michael remained dedicated to his training. He continued to work out at the old iron works every evening, pushing himself even harder than before. Joe, seeing his unwavering commitment, started to push him as well, introducing new exercises and more challenging routines. The gym became even more stifling during the summer heat, but Michael didn't complain. He embraced the discomfort, knowing that it was making him stronger. He imagined his teammates lounging around, unaware of the transformation he was undergoing. He also adjusted his diet, eating more protein and complex carbohydrates, fueling his body with the nutrients it needed to grow. His mom, although still unaware of the full extent of his training, happily obliged, cooking him larger and more nutritious meals. He avoided running into his former teammates. He didn't want them to see him, not yet. He wanted to surprise them. He wanted to show them how much he had changed. Sometimes, late at night, after a particularly grueling workout, he would walk past the football field. He would stand in the shadows, watching the empty field, imagining himself playing there, scoring touchdowns, leading the team to victory. He knew he had a long way to go, but he was determined to get there. He was no longer the skinny, shy kid who had been ridiculed and dismissed. He was becoming someone else, someone stronger, someone more confident, someone who was ready to chase his dream, no matter what it took. The summer became his crucible, forging him into the athlete he was destined to be. The memory of those taunts fueled his solitary workouts. The camera lingers on Michael. It's late in the summer. He's alone in the old iron works, bathed in the dim, flickering light. Sweat glistens on his skin as he strains to lift a heavy barbell. His muscles bulge with effort. He grits his teeth, pushing through the pain. He lowers the weight slowly, carefully, his breathing heavy and ragged. He rests for a moment, catching his breath, then prepares for another set. He's focused, determined, his eyes fixed on the weight. Outside, the crickets chirp, and the streetlights cast long shadows. The world is quiet, peaceful. But inside the gym, Michael is battling himself, pushing his limits, transforming his body and mind. He finishes his set, then moves on to another exercise. He's methodical, disciplined, following the routine that Joe has laid out for him. He knows that every rep, every set, every workout is bringing him closer to his goal. He glances at a faded photograph pinned to the wall. It's a picture of Joe in his younger days, a muscular, imposing figure, standing proudly with a championship trophy. Michael admires Joe, respects his knowledge and experience. He hopes that one day, he can achieve the same level of success. He finishes his workout, then cleans up the gym, putting the weights back in their place, wiping down the machines. He respects the old iron works, appreciates the sanctuary it has provided him. He walks home in the cool night air, his body exhausted but his spirit renewed. He looks up at the stars, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He knows he's not there yet, but he's closer than he's ever been. He's ready for senior year. He's ready for football. He's ready to show them all what he's capable of. He's ready to prove them wrong. He's ready. The night ends with Michael looking determined, silhouetted against the moonlight. The image symbolizes his solitary journey. The first day of senior year arrived. Michael woke up early, a mix of excitement and nervousness swirling within him. He put on a new t-shirt, one that fit snugly across his broader shoulders. He looked in the mirror, barely recognizing the reflection staring back at him. He ate a hearty breakfast, fueling his body for the day ahead. His mom smiled at him, her eyes filled with pride. "Have a good day, sweetie," she said, giving him a hug. As he walked to school, he noticed people staring at him. He had always been invisible before, but now, people were taking notice. He could feel their eyes on him, their whispers following him. He arrived at the football field, where tryouts for the senior year team were about to begin. He saw his former teammates gathered together, laughing and joking. Jake and Tom were there, bigger and more confident than ever. Michael took a deep breath and walked towards them. He could feel their eyes on him, their laughter dying down as he approached. They looked at him with a mixture of surprise and confusion. "Well, look who decided to show up," Jake said, a smirk on his face. "What are you doing here, Mikey? Still dreaming of being a football star?" Michael didn't say anything. He just stood there, his eyes fixed on Jake. He knew he had changed, but he wasn't sure if they could see it yet. "Maybe he's here to carry our water bottles," Tom said, and the other players laughed. Michael remained silent. He knew that words wouldn't convince them. He had to show them. He had to prove them wrong. He was no longer the skinny, shy kid they remembered. He was someone else now. He was ready. The scene ends with a close-up on Michael's determined face. The change is obvious. The coach, Mr. Thompson, walked onto the field, clapping his hands to get everyone's attention. He stopped short when he saw Michael. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Michael? Is that really you?" he asked, his voice filled with surprise. Michael nodded, a slight smile playing on his lips. Mr. Thompson circled him slowly, taking in his new physique. "What happened to you? You've gotten huge." The other players stared in stunned silence. They couldn't believe their eyes. The skinny, frail kid they had tormented was now a muscular, imposing figure. "I've been working out," Michael said, his voice deeper and more confident than before. "Working out? You look like you've been living in a gym," Mr. Thompson exclaimed. He was impressed, but also a little skeptical. "Well, I guess we'll see if you've actually learned anything." The tryouts began. The players ran drills, threw passes, and tackled each other. Michael watched intently, waiting for his turn. When it was his turn to run the 40-yard dash, the other players scoffed. "He's too big now," Jake whispered. "He'll be slow as a turtle." Michael ignored them. He focused on the starting line, took a deep breath, and exploded forward. He ran faster than he ever had before, his legs pumping, his arms driving. He crossed the finish line, leaving everyone in stunned silence. "Wow! Mr. Thompson exclaimed, checking his stopwatch. That's the fastest time we've seen all day. The other players looked at each other in disbelief. Michael wasn't just bigger, he was faster and stronger too. He had transformed himself into a completely different athlete. The whispers started. Did you see him? He's a beast. He's not the same Mikey anymore. The scene ends with Michael smirking slightly, enjoying their shock. He has proven his transformation. During the passing drills, Michael's throws were crisp and accurate. He could hurl the ball farther than anyone else on the team, the spiral tight and clean. Even Jake, the star linebacker, had to admit he was impressed. "All right, Mikey," Jake said, approaching him with a grudging respect. "Not bad. Not bad at all." Michael just nodded, his eyes focused on the next drill. He wasn't interested in their approval. He was there to play football, to prove himself on the field. When it came time for tackling drills, Mr. Thompson paired Michael against Jake. The other players gathered around, eager to see what would happen. Jake smirked. "Don't think those muscles are gonna save you now, Mikey," he said, getting into his stance. "I'm still gonna knock you on your butt." Michael just stared back, his eyes filled with a quiet determination. He got into his stance, ready for the challenge. The whistle blew. Jake charged forward, aiming to bulldoze Michael. But Michael was ready. He sidestepped Jake's charge and used his newfound strength to drive Jake to the ground. The other players gasped. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Michael, the skinny kid who used to be their punching bag, had just taken down Jake, the team's star linebacker. Jake lay on the ground, stunned and humiliated. He looked up at Michael with a mixture of anger and respect. Mr. Thompson whistled, stopping the drill. All right, that's enough," he said, a wide grin on his face. "Michael, you've definitely earned your spot on this team." The initial shock and disbelief began to fade, replaced by a grudging admiration. The whispers and stares continued, but now, they were filled with a different kind of curiosity. Michael had proven that he was no longer someone to be mocked. He was someone to be reckoned with. The scene ends with Michael helping Jake up, a sign of respect despite their history. He's proving himself a team player. The first game of the season arrived, and Michael was starting. The crowd roared as the team took the field. Michael felt a surge of adrenaline. He was ready. The opposing team underestimated him. They saw the number 82 jersey and assumed he was the same skinny kid they had seen on film from the previous year. They were wrong. On the first play, Michael caught a short pass and exploded down the sideline, leaving defenders in his wake. He ran for a 20-yard gain, setting the tone for the game. The crowd went wild. They had never seen anything like it. Michael was a force of nature, a whirlwind of speed and power. Throughout the game, Michael continued to make big plays. He caught passes, ran the ball, and even made a few tackles on defense. He was everywhere, dominating the game. His increased confidence was evident. He moved with a swagger, a quiet assurance that he was in control. He called audibles at the line of scrimmage, directing the offense with authority. Even Jake, who had initially mocked him, was now relying on him. They were becoming a formidable duo, a force that the opposing team couldn't stop. With minutes left in the fourth quarter, the score was tied. The team needed a touchdown to win the game. Mr. Thompson called a play that put the ball in Michael's hands. Michael took the handoff and burst through the line, dodging defenders and sprinting towards the end zone. He crossed the goal line, scoring the game-winning touchdown. The crowd erupted, chanting his name. "Michael, Michael, Michael." The team swarmed him, celebrating their victory. He looked up at the stands and saw his mom cheering, her eyes filled with tears of joy. He had done it. He had proven them wrong. He had achieved his dream. The game ends with Michael being carried off the field on his teammates' shoulders. He is now a hero. The team's winning streak began. Game after game, Michael continued to excel, making key plays and leading the team to victory. He was a scoring machine, a defensive powerhouse, a true leader on the field. His teammates, who had once ridiculed him, now looked up to him. They respected his work ethic, his determination, and his unwavering commitment to the team. Even Jake, who had been his biggest tormentor, became one of his closest friends. They formed a strong bond, a brotherhood forged in the fires of competition. During practices, Michael would often stay late, helping his teammates improve their skills. He shared his knowledge and experience, always willing to lend a helping hand. He wasn't just focused on his own success, he wanted the entire team to succeed. He knew that they were stronger together, that they could achieve more as a united force. Mr. Thompson, who had once dismissed him, now relied on him to lead the team. He trusted Michael's judgment, respected his leadership, and valued his contributions. The local newspapers began to write about Michael, praising his talent and his incredible transformation. He became a local celebrity, an inspiration to everyone who had ever doubted themselves. He remained humble and grounded, never forgetting where he came from. He remembered the ridicule, the discouragement, the feeling of being an outsider. He used those memories to fuel his drive, to push himself even harder. He also made sure to thank Joe, the owner of the old iron works, for his guidance and support. He knew that he wouldn't have been able to achieve his dream without Joe's help. The team's success brought the community together. Everyone rallied around them, supporting them, cheering them on. They were more than just a football team, they were a symbol of hope, a testament to the power of perseverance. The team is becoming a source of pride for the town. As Michael's confidence grew, so did his willingness to open up. He started to shed his shyness, interacting more with his teammates, sharing jokes, and offering words of encouragement. He found himself laughing more, enjoying the camaraderie of the team. He realized that he wasn't alone anymore, that he was part of something bigger than himself. He started to see his teammates not as tormentors, but as friends. He learned to trust them, to rely on them, and to support them in return. Even Jake, who had initially been so cruel, became a true confidant. They would spend hours talking about football, about life, about their dreams for the future. Michael also started to connect with the younger players on the team, mentoring them, helping them develop their skills. He remembered what it was like to be an outsider, to feel lost and alone. He wanted to make sure that no one else had to experience that. He used his own experiences to inspire others, to show them that anything is possible if you're willing to work hard and believe in yourself. He started to speak out more, offering his opinions and ideas during team meetings. He wasn't afraid to challenge the coach, to question the plays, to suggest new strategies. Mr. Thompson, who had initially been hesitant to listen to Michael, soon realized that he had a valuable perspective to offer. He started to rely on Michael's insights, trusting his judgment and valuing his input. Michael's transformation wasn't just physical, it was also emotional and social. He had gone from being a shy, isolated kid to a confident, respected leader, a true role model for his teammates and his community. The change in him is inspiring the whole team. The team continued its dominant run, advancing through the playoffs with ease. Each game was a testament to their hard work, their dedication, and their unwavering belief in each other. They faced tough opponents, but they always found a way to win. Michael's leadership was instrumental in their success. He inspired his teammates to push themselves harder, to never give up, and to always believe in their ability to overcome any challenge. During the playoff games, Michael made countless key plays, scoring touchdowns, making tackles, and leading the team with unwavering confidence. He was a true force of nature, a player who could single-handedly change the course of a game. The pressure mounted as they got closer to the championship. The stakes were higher, the competition was tougher, and the expectations were greater. But Michael remained calm and focused, reminding his teammates to stay grounded, to trust their instincts, and to play with heart. He also made sure to emphasize the importance of teamwork, reminding them that they were all in this together, that they could only achieve their goal by working as a united force. Mr. Thompson, who had initially been skeptical of Michael, now saw him as his most valuable asset. He relied on Michael's leadership, trusted his judgment, and valued his contributions. He gave Michael more and more responsibility, allowing him to call plays, make adjustments, and lead the team on the field. Michael thrived under the pressure, embracing the challenge and inspiring his teammates to do the same. He was a true leader, a player who could elevate the performance of everyone around him. The team's success is heavily reliant on Michael's leadership. In the semi-final game, with a trip to the state championship on the line, the team faced their toughest opponent yet, the undefeated Northwood High Timberwolves. The Timberwolves were bigger, faster, and more experienced than any team they had faced before. They had a star quarterback who was being heavily recruited by top colleges, and a defense that was virtually impenetrable. Early in the game, the Timberwolves dominated, scoring 2 quick touchdowns and shutting down the team's offense. Michael and his teammates were stunned. They had never faced such adversity before. Doubt began to creep into their minds. They started to question their ability to win. The Timberwolves were simply too good, too strong, too dominant. Mr. Thompson called a timeout, gathering the team on the sidelines. He looked at them with concern, seeing the fear in their eyes. "We can't give up now," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "We've come too far to let this slip away. We need to dig deep, to find something inside ourselves that we didn't know we had." He looked at Michael. "Michael, you're our leader. You need to step up and inspire these guys. Show them that we can do this." Michael took a deep breath and looked at his teammates. He saw the doubt, the fear, the uncertainty. He knew he had to say something, to do something, to turn the tide. He stood up, his eyes filled with determination. "We're not going to lose this game," he said, his voice clear and strong. "We've worked too hard, we've sacrificed too much. We're not going to let these guys push us around. We're going to fight back, and we're going to win this game. The team is facing its biggest challenge yet." Inspired by Michael's words, the team took the field with a renewed sense of purpose. They started to play with more intensity, more passion, more heart. But the Timberwolves were not going to go down without a fight. They continued to play tough, shutting down the team's offense and scoring another touchdown, extending their lead to 21-0. The situation seemed hopeless. The team was demoralized, defeated. Even Michael started to doubt himself. He wondered if they had what it took to overcome such a deficit. He looked up at the stands and saw his mom, her face etched with worry. He knew he couldn't let her down. He had to keep fighting, to keep believing. He took a deep breath and ran onto the field, his eyes blazing with determination. He called a play that put the ball in his hands. He took the handoff and burst through the line, dodging defenders and sprinting towards the end zone. He was tackled just short of the goal line, but he had gained valuable yardage. On the next play, he called his own number again. He took the snap and leaped over the line, scoring a touchdown. The crowd erupted, chanting his name. "Michael, Michael, Michael." The team's spirits lifted. They had finally scored. They had finally broken through the Timberwolves' defense. But the Timberwolves responded with another touchdown, extending their lead to 28-7. Time was running out. The team needed a miracle. Michael knew he had to do something drastic. He had to take a risk, to try something unexpected. He decided to call a trick play, one that they had practiced but never used in a game. The risk is high. The team lined up for the trick play. The Timberwolves were expecting a run, but Michael had something else in mind. He took the snap and faked a handoff to the running back. Then, he threw the ball backwards to Jake, who was lined up as a wide receiver. Jake, who had never thrown a pass in his life, hesitated for a moment, then heaved the ball downfield towards Michael, who was streaking towards the end zone. The ball hung in the air, seemingly for an eternity. Michael leaped high above the defender, catching the ball and landing in the end zone for a touchdown. The crowd went berserk. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The team had pulled off the impossible. The score was now 28-14. They still had a long way to go, but they had a glimmer of hope. They scored another touchdown, and then another, narrowing the gap to 28-27. With seconds left on the clock, they needed to score a 2-point conversion to take the lead. Michael called his own number again. He took the snap and ran towards the end zone, dodging defenders and diving across the goal line for the 2-point conversion. The crowd erupted in a frenzy. The team had done it. They had come back from a 21-point deficit to win the game and advance to the state championship. Michael was mobbed by his teammates, who lifted him onto their shoulders and carried him off the field. He had rallied his team, inspired them to believe in themselves, and led them to victory. He had overcome the challenge. The team is going to the championship. The town was buzzing with excitement. The team's improbable run to the state championship had captured the hearts of everyone. Banners were hung, pep rallies were organized, and the entire community rallied behind their team. But with the excitement came immense pressure. The team was now expected to win, to bring home the championship trophy. The weight of expectations was heavy on their shoulders. Michael felt the pressure more than anyone. He knew that the entire town was counting on him, that their hopes and dreams were riding on his shoulders. He tried to stay focused, to block out the noise and the distractions. He continued to train hard, pushing himself to his limits, preparing himself for the biggest game of his life. He visited Joe at the old iron works, seeking his guidance and wisdom. Joe, who had seen it all before, offered words of encouragement and advice. "Just play your game, kid," Joe said, his voice raspy but reassuring. "Don't let the pressure get to you. Just go out there and do what you do best." Michael also spent time with his mom, seeking her comfort and support. She reminded him of how far he had come, of all the obstacles he had overcome. "I'm so proud of you, Michael," she said, her eyes filled with tears of joy. "No matter what happens, you're a winner in my book." The night before the championship game, Michael couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, replaying the season in his head. He remembered the ridicule, the discouragement, the feeling of being an outsider. He remembered the hard work, the dedication, the perseverance. He knew he had to give it everything he had, to leave it all on the field. He owed it to his teammates, to his coach, to his mom, to Joe, and to the entire town. He had to prove that anything is possible if you're willing to believe in yourself. The weight of the town's hopes rests on his shoulders. A montage of flashbacks flickered through Michael's mind. He saw himself as the skinny, shy kid, struggling to keep up with his teammates, being pushed around and mocked. "Hey, Twig. Try holding the line for once." Jake's voice echoed in his head. He remembered the coach's dismissive words, "Football's not for everyone. Maybe you should consider something else. Chess club, maybe." He saw himself walking alone to the old iron works, feeling defeated and discouraged, but determined to prove them wrong. He remembered the grueling workouts, the pain, the sweat, the sacrifices. He saw Joe, offering words of encouragement and guidance. "This is where you earn it." He remembered his mom, always cheering him on, always believing in him. "I'm so proud of you, Michael." He contrasted those images with his present reality. He was no longer the skinny, shy kid. He was a confident, respected leader, a star athlete, a role model for his community. He had come so far, overcome so much. He had transformed himself, both inside and out. He had achieved his dream. He thought about the ridicule he had faced, the pain he had endured. He used those memories to fuel his drive, to remind himself of what he was capable of. He realized that his journey had made him who he was, that it had taught him valuable lessons about perseverance, about dedication, about the importance of believing in yourself. He knew that he had to give it everything he had in the championship game, not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever doubted themselves, for everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough. He needed to show them that anything is possible. He is not the same person anymore. The state championship game was played in a packed stadium, the air thick with anticipation. The crowd was a sea of faces, all cheering for their team. Michael took the field, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked up at the stands and saw his mom, Joe, and Mr. Thompson, all smiling at him. He knew he wasn't alone. The game was a back-and-forth battle, a tense and suspenseful affair. Both teams played their hearts out, leaving everything on the field. The opposing team was tough, well-coached, and determined to win. They had a star running back who was nearly impossible to stop, and a defense that was stifling. Michael and his teammates fought hard, but they struggled to gain an advantage. The score remained close throughout the game, neither team able to pull away. With minutes left in the fourth quarter, the score was tied. The game was on the line. The opposing team had the ball and was driving towards the end zone. They were threatening to score a touchdown and take the lead. The defense dug deep, making a crucial stop, forcing the opposing team to attempt a field goal. The kicker lined up, took a deep breath, and kicked the ball. The ball sailed through the air, heading straight for the goalposts. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see if the kick would be good. The suspense was unbearable. The championship hangs in the balance. The ball sailed through the air, spinning end over end. Everyone watched intently, their hearts pounding in their chests. The ball reached the goalposts. It was close, very close. The referee raised his arms. The kick was good. The opposing team took the lead, 31-28, with only seconds left on the clock. The team was devastated. They had come so far, worked so hard, only to have their dreams dashed in the final seconds. Mr. Thompson called a timeout, gathering the team on the sidelines. He looked at them with disappointment, but also with pride. "We gave it our best shot," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "We can hold our heads high." But Michael wasn't ready to give up. He knew there was still a chance. He looked at his teammates and saw the despair in their eyes. "We're not done yet," he said, his voice filled with determination. "We still have time. We can still win this game." He looked at Mr. Thompson. "Coach, give me the ball. I'll get us into field goal range." Mr. Thompson hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He trusted Michael. He knew that he was capable of anything. The team lined up for the kickoff. Michael positioned himself deep in his own territory, ready to receive the ball. The kicker booted the ball high into the air. Michael caught the ball and exploded forward, dodging defenders and sprinting down the field. He weaved his way through the crowd, making incredible moves, gaining valuable yardage. He was finally tackled just before midfield, with only seconds left on the clock. Mr. Thompson called another timeout. He knew that they had one last chance to score. He looked at Michael. "What do you want to do?" he asked. Michael looked at his teammates, his eyes filled with determination. "I want the ball," he said. "I'll win this game. The last play will decide everything." The team lined up for the final play. The crowd was on its feet, roaring with anticipation. Michael took the snap and faded back, scanning the field. He saw Jake open in the end zone, but he was double covered. He tucked the ball and started to run, dodging defenders and sprinting towards the sideline. He knew he had to make something happen, to find a way to get into the end zone. He reached the sideline and leaped into the air, stretching out his arm and reaching for the goal line. He was hit hard by a defender, but he held on to the ball. He landed in the end zone, scoring the game-winning touchdown. The stadium erupted. The crowd went wild, cheering and screaming and celebrating. The team had won the state championship. Michael was mobbed by his teammates, who lifted him onto their shoulders and carried him off the field. He had done it. He had led his team to victory. He looked up at the stands and saw his mom, Joe, and Mr. Thompson, all smiling at him with pride. He had made them proud. He had proven everyone wrong. He had achieved his dream. He had shown the world that anything is possible if you're willing to believe in yourself, to work hard, and to never give up. The celebration continued long into the night. The town was alive with joy and excitement. The team had brought home the championship trophy, and they had inspired everyone with their incredible journey. Michael has accomplished his goal. As the celebration began to die down, a group of men in suits approached Michael on the field. They were college scouts, representing some of the top football programs in the country. They had been watching Michael all season, impressed by his talent, his leadership, and his incredible transformation. They knew that he was a special player, someone who could make a difference on their team. "Michael, we've been following your career closely," one of the scouts said, extending his hand. "We're very impressed with what we've seen. We'd like to offer you a scholarship to play football at our university." Other scouts chimed in, making similar offers. Michael was overwhelmed. He had dreamed of playing college football, but he never thought it would actually happen. He looked at his mom, who was beaming with pride. He looked at Joe, who nodded in approval. He knew that they would support him no matter what he decided. He thanked the scouts for their offers and promised to consider them carefully. He knew that this was a life-changing decision, one that would affect his future forever. He spent the next few weeks visiting different colleges, meeting with coaches, and touring the campuses. He wanted to find the right fit, the place where he could continue to grow as a player and as a person. He considered the pros and cons of each offer, weighing his options carefully. He knew that he had a tough decision to make, but he was excited about the future. His hard work has paid off. College is now a reality. After weeks of careful consideration, Michael made his decision. He chose to accept a scholarship to play football at a prestigious D1 university, a school known for its strong academic program and its winning football team. He knew that it would be a challenging experience, that he would have to work even harder to compete at the next level. But he was ready for the challenge. He had proven to himself that he could overcome any obstacle, that he could achieve anything he set his mind to. He called the coaches at the other schools, thanking them for their offers and explaining his decision. They were disappointed, but they understood. They wished him well and told him to stay in touch. He then called the coach at the university he had chosen, informing him of his decision. The coach was ecstatic. He couldn't wait to have Michael on his team. He shared the news with his mom, who was overjoyed. She had always supported his dreams, and she was so proud of him for achieving his goals. He also told Joe, who smiled and nodded. "I knew you could do it, kid," Joe said, his voice filled with pride. "You've got what it takes to be great." He thanked Joe for his guidance and support. He knew that he wouldn't have been able to achieve his dream without Joe's help. He had come a long way from the skinny, shy kid who had been ridiculed and dismissed. He had transformed himself into a confident, respected leader, a star athlete, and a D1 football player. He had achieved his dream. The future is bright. The day arrived for Michael to leave for college. He packed his bags, said goodbye to his mom, and headed towards the old iron works. He wanted to thank Joe one last time, to say goodbye to the place that had transformed his life. He found Joe inside, working on some equipment. Joe looked up and smiled. "So, you're finally heading off to college," Joe said, his voice filled with pride. "I always knew you'd make it." Michael smiled and shook Joe's hand. "I couldn't have done it without you, Joe," he said. "Thank you for everything." Joe nodded and patted Michael on the shoulder. "Just remember what I taught you, kid," he said. "Hard work, dedication, and belief in yourself. Those are the keys to success." Michael nodded. He knew that he would never forget those lessons. He turned to leave, then hesitated for a moment. He looked back at the old iron works, the place where he had spent countless hours, pushing himself to his limits, transforming himself into the person he was today. He saw the rusty weights, the worn-out equipment, the faded photograph of Joe in his younger days. He felt a surge of gratitude for this place, for the lessons he had learned here, for the person he had become. He took a deep breath and smiled. He was no longer the skinny, shy kid who had been ridiculed and dismissed. He was a confident, strong, and determined young man, ready to take on the world. He turned and walked away, heading towards his future, towards his dreams, towards his destiny. The message is clear: believe in yourself, never give up, and anything is possible. The end.